Welcome to New York City's Flatbush, Brooklyn. Today we're going to learn about the various secrets and beautiful architecture that is all around this neighborhood. And in certain unexpected ways as well, because we're going to see a lot of Victorian architecture. This is Victorian Flatbush, New York City. I'm Ariel with Erasmus. Let me know where you're watching from. And let's explore this neighborhood of Brooklyn that has a whole lot of history. So currently we are located in the neighborhood of Flatbush, which, let's zoom in here, it's right there. Flatbush, right below Prospect Park. Now the interesting thing about Flatbush, it's one of the 5 classic Dutch settlements originally in this was now borough of Brooklyn. Here we are in front of Erasmus High School, the oldest high school in all of America. So welcome everyone, nice to see you here. I'm Ariel with Erasmus, and yes, we are in Erasmus High School. It's one of the oldest high schools in all of America. Dates back all the way to the 1700s. Susu, I'm in your neck of the woods. Oh, amazing. Nice to see you here. Now, this was designed by CBJ Snyder. And he designed over 400 public high schools in New York City alone. He's one of the most prolific architects in all of New York City history. The school was founded in 1786 and originally was funded by Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. If you recall correctly, the videos I've done before of the famous vice president who shot and killed the Secretary of Treasury. Yep, these two guys, before they shot each other, funded this school. Then it was made again by CBJ Snyder in 1904. This is him right here. So every time you look around and see a beautiful public school in New York City, it was most likely made by this guy. Now, there's a lot of interesting elements in here and very loud noises. This is Flatbush Avenue, so brace yourself for a lot of street noise. But soon we're going to go to a place where it seems like another world, just in a few blocks. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit of the details and then we'll continue walking. Now, a few famous alumni of this school have been Neil Diamond, the famous singer. We have Barbra Streisand, the star of one of my favorite Broadway cast albums, The Ballad of the Garment Trade. Or the song was The Ballad of the Garment Trade. I'll Give It to You Wholesale was the name of the cast album. And, of course, the woman that we mentioned in our forgotten Greenwich Village history, Mae West herself. All right, let's zoom in on details. Now, of course, with a lot of early New York architecture from the 1800s, we see a lot of owl imagery. So 2 owl statues lurk above the entrance of this high school. Now, right here, we have something very interesting. This is Tiffany stained glass windows. Unfortunately, we're not seeing it in its full glory from this direction because it's better when you look stained glass window from the inside, and also there's a lot of pollution, a lot of dust accumulated on the glass. These were made by Louis Comfort Tiffany himself. If you recall Tiffany, the name, it's all around New York City. One of the most famous glass makers, basically in history. Now, let's take a look inside here. 1904. And look through the window or through the entrance. Unfortunately, I can't go inside. Sometimes it's hard to get access to these places, but we can look through. And here's the courtyard of the high school. Now, this current high school, 1904, was actually built on the wooden foundations of the original high school from 1786. Teresa, thank you so much for the stars. Bernard says Streisand with the soft S. No, interesting. And she corrects a lot of people with that. Interesting, Bernard. Thank you. So let's see if we can get another view of stained glass. I guess owls represent wisdom. Excuse me. Yes, owls represent wisdom and knowledge. Now, they're more, a lot of times they are also associated with secret knowledge, more specifically. So yeah, the Tiffany glass we can't see too well, but you'll find photos of it online. Unfortunately, I can't post these photos because I don't own them, but they're easy to find online. And look at that. Whoa. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Gorgeous high school. There's so many details to just admire. And this is the aesthetic. This is the stereotypical aesthetic of New York City schools. They're all around the city. All right, let's continue making our way to our next stop, right down there. Let me know where you're watching from. Susu, thank you so much for the stars. John says Moloch. A lot of people say that reference. Yes, Moloch. Mail. Good to see you again. Your walks are awesome. I'm so glad you're enjoying my walks, Mail. Some beautiful Tiffany windows sit in the village churches as well. Yes, they do. If you go further upstate and see the churches of the rich robber barons of the late 1800s, Rockefeller, Astor's, etc., you will see amazing Tiffany glass windows also in their churches. Woody Allen went to Midwood. Yes, he did. He did. Bernie Sanders is from nearby as well, in Midwood/Flatbush. We are in a very famous neighborhood. So before we go to our second stop, Flatbush, we're not going to actually be able to see the immense history it has on popular culture. We won't be able to see it, but I'd rather just tell it to you right now. Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes. That accent, and what's up, Knock? That accent, according to Mel Blanc, the actor, came from here, a Flatbush accent. Fry from Futurama. If you remember Futurama show, it's such a great show. I think it's still running technically. It's like rebooted. The main character who has the red hair and overdoses on coffee a few times, he is also from Flatbush. And also, Super Mario. Yep, Super Mario and Luigi, his sidekick, are said to also be from Flatbush, and it was directly referenced that they are from Flatbush in the Super Mario film. So that is the pop culture history of Flatbush. So just keep that in mind as we're walking around. Betty, awesome tour, you're awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Betty. All right, let's cross the street. It's a bit hectic here, so brace yourself. Great shirt today, thank you so much, Joey, I appreciate it. Watching from Las Vegas. I'm still a true New Yorker, even though I left 22 years old. Yes, you may leave New York, but New York never leaves you. Donald, I loved Futurama. Me too. I was a fan of it when the original seasons when they aired. It was only like 2 or 3 seasons, I think, on Fox. If you want to see what New York felt like in the I imagine 1940s and 1950s, just come here to Flatbush. All the density has moved over here. Great music, yeah, great salsa music. I agree. Brings me back home to Puerto Rico. So this was completed in 1798, and it was designed by Thomas Farden, another popular designer. He designed this church in a rather unique style. It was designed in the Federal style, which is something you don't see with a lot of churches here in New York City. Usually they're Gothic or Greek Revival or Romanesque. The other thing is this was actually the original church parish dates back to 1654, and it was started up by the Dutch. Now let me peek in this side and then we'll go on the other way. We're going to peek in over here. So here is the graveyard. And it was founded under the direction of Peter Stuyvesant. So this Dutch Reformed Church also has a similar look to the church we visited in Sleepy Hollow that dates back to 1699. Now, John asked, do they still speak Dutch in Flatbush? They don't, of course. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find any Dutch being spoken here, unless if it's a European expat. However, Dutch was spoken here till about the early 1800s. The school that we're about to see right behind the church was teaching Dutch as the primary language all the way till the early 1800s. So Dutch was alive, and this was probably the last remaining cultural remnant of Dutch in New York City. So here's a school that was teaching Dutch for a much longer time than the Dutch were in power here in New York. And Jackie, now we just turn from Flatbush Avenue to Church Avenue. Knickerbockers are long gone. Oh yeah, they are. The Dutch colonized Flatbush. Indeed they did. Cindy, I'm doing very well, Cindy. Flatbush has best Jamaican patties. I heard that they had great Jamaican patties, yeah. I have bad memories from Jamaican patties because I think any New Yorker who went to public school would probably relate. We were fed chicken patties like 3 times a week, and they were very, very low quality. And whenever I see a chicken patty, I associate it with those terrible chicken patties they would sell me at school. I know there's better chicken patties, but that's my experience as a New Yorker. Let me know if you grew up like that. Getting closer to where you live. Yeah, Jackie, we are. So here we have a graveyard, and the graveyard, a lot of old graves dating back to the 1700s. However, according to rumors, soldiers from the Revolutionary War who died in the Battle of Long Island were buried right underneath this church. They might still be buried there. No one knows for sure. It is just a rumor. But one real thing that we can trace is a particular name in a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, who wrote the book about Red Hook being one of the most terrible places on Earth. Now, H.P. Lovecraft lived for a while in New York City, and he absolutely hated it. To him, it was basically hellscape on Earth. I think a lot of people nowadays are thinking that's that same thing with New York, even though I think they're wrong. H.P. Lovecraft ended up writing The Horror of Red Hook after he saw a name here in one of the gravestones and referenced it in his short story. So hello Ralph, hello Daisy. They were like cardboard. Hello. Yes, they were like cardboard. So Daisy remembers the Jamaican patties. Nothing against Jamaican patties. This is the public school system, bastardized Jamaican patties. So here we're gonna see a lot of the remnants of old movie theaters. This is one of the old movie theaters that used to be in Flatbush. It's now a Modell's sporting goods store. But anytime you see this type of structure with like a huge staircase, it's a little bit taller, but it has no windows, that's an old movie theater.
Yep.
So John says the Dutch were to blame for the slave trade. Blame is a much more complicated word, but yes, at a certain point in Brooklyn's history, there were more slaves here than any other part of the U.S. or any part north of the Mason-Dixon line, which is a line, arbitrary line that divides the north and the south of the U.S. Hello, my fellow urbanists. Hello, nice to see you here, man. B. Griffin, thank you so much for tuning in. Gretchen, you made it. All right, everyone. Now let's keep walking. Let's see. Actually, let's check out this old part of the church before we go continue on Church Avenue. Kay says the first time I had Jamaican patties, it was in Jamaica, and they were beautiful. So glad. Erasmus High, yep, we already saw Erasmus High. So I forgot to mention, Erasmus was named after this guy, famous theologian of the 1400s. Basically one of the most famous theologians in European history, along with the ranks of like people like Meister Eckhart, of course St. Francis of Assisi, and a few others. Wow. So here are the borders of Flatbush. And here's the church on how it would look like early 1900s. And this is what the graveyard will look like right here. Hey, Ruby, nice to see you here. Daisy, you grew up in Park Slope on 3rd Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. Oh, welcome, Daisy. Nice to see you here. Did you know you have to live in Flatbush if you can't be buried in? I don't think they're burying any more people in this specific graveyard. You'll be hard pressed to be buried in most New York City graves nowadays. Here we are. We're in Kenmore Terrace. So Kenmore Terrace has a very unique fixture. Can anyone let me know in the comments, what do you think is very unique about these houses? The very first, they did something that was the very first in the world. What is it? Let me know in the comments as we show you more of these houses. What did they do first? There's something unique that they did first, and these were built in the early 1900s. They did something first, and you can see outside. It's not obvious, but you can see it. You can tell what it is. Jackie and Gwen, oh, you guys got it. Driveways, and more specifically, the indoor parking garage. So these houses, Kenmore Terrace, is a small little historic district here in Flatbush. And the reason it is A, it's beautiful row houses. It's a very unique design. So they are partly inspired by the arts and crafts movement, which, if you remember that Bay Ridge video we did, we visited this very funky house that looked like a fairy tale house, like a gingerbread house. Same type of movement. So they're inspired by the arts and crafts movement. But beyond that, these houses were designed shortly after the Model T, the Ford Model T, came out in mass production. And suddenly a lot of New Yorkers, or more New Yorkers, were starting to buy cars, especially the ones that were a little bit more well-off. And Flatbush was a well-off neighborhood, at least in its beginning, which we're going to see more proof of it on our next stop. The first thing that they did was the driveway. So they were the first houses in America, and most likely the entire world, because America innovated the auto trade, that had indoor garages and of course the iconic driveway that we know all around the world. So if you see, for example, the very first rich people who owned cars in New York City, before the Ford Model T, they would convert their old carriage houses, which were the horse stables, they would convert that into their garage. These were the first purposefully made garages for cars. Am I near Crown Heights? Kind of. It's good. It's good. It's a good thing you pronounce things clearly, Ariel. It could sound like arts and crafts movement. Yes, indeed. You couldn't huff and puff and blow them down. They are beautiful. I agreed. I agree. I agree. Gorgeous little houses. Oh no! Thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you. My mic rattles because it starts hitting my button, and sometimes it slides down. So please let me know if my mic ever rattles. It's hard to tell because I can't hear my own audio. And I'm glad you enjoy how I pronounce things. With the mask, it's a bit hard. So if I sound a little bit muffled, it's because I'm using a mask. All right, let's go to our next stop. Actually, let me zoom in a little bit. Am I near the historic ballpark? I kind of am. I think I'm about like a 15-minute walk away. So look at these gorgeous houses. Cool mask. Thank you so much to Steve. I appreciate the compliment. It's like cars here everywhere, doing crazy turns. All right. Let's walk on Church Ave. So, some fellow urbanist has been requesting to show Church Ave, and here it is. That's an Amazon Prime driver for you. Yeah, he was really struggling with getting out of Kenmore Terrace. Love how you color coordinate your masks and your shirts. Oh, thank you so much, Susu. I'm glad you appreciate it. Betty, you enjoy all my tours. I'm so glad. What is the house with the porch? I'm not entirely sure. The house with the porch appears to, it does belong, because it's within the fence, belongs to the Reformed Church, the Dutch Reformed Church. Its purpose is unclear to me. Maybe it's a rectory, or maybe it functions as some sort of historical society. Maybe someone knows. That's a good question. In Westchester County, there are a lot of separate garages that were added to old homes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, David, thank you for letting us know. Yeah. That was also something that came about in the 20s after the Ford Model T. Oh my God, you just realized no West Indian Parade. Yeah, we are on Labor Day weekend. So, Flatbush. I mentioned Bugs Bunny, I mentioned Super Mario Brothers. They were from here. Fry in Futurama is characterized as like a white guy with a Brooklyn accent. And the demographics here have changed, especially after the 1970s. A lot of Caribbeaners started moving here. And this is one of the largest Caribbean neighborhoods in all of the US. And one of the largest Caribbean enclaves outside of the Caribbean, which is really cool. And that's why you'll find things like Jamaican beef patties, you'll find jerk chicken, you'll find double doubles, many other things. David says the house with the porch is probably a personage. Oh, thank you for letting us know. Neil Diamond's a Flatbushian. Yes, he is. So the Flatbush accent that you hear now today would be different than Bugs Bunny or Neil Diamond or Barbra Streisand or Super Mario, etc. And here is Ocean Ave. Ocean Avenue. I did a brief tour of it like 2 months ago during the pandemic, or the height of the pandemic. And this is the longest north-south avenue, or the first north-south avenue in Brooklyn. Parts of it were constructed by Frederick Law Olmsted. This is a big change from the 80s. Yes, this neighborhood has undergone a lot of changes. Passing through a few times, never explored. Must try Gloria's rotis. Ooh, I love roti. Thank you for the recommendation. That's another thing you'll find a lot in this neighborhood, some roti. Bikers are trying to pass, cars are trying to pass even though it's red. This is like a bit of a maddening neighborhood, to be honest. Oh, okay, good. So I came here just shortly earlier and there was a bunch of markets here. I think they closed by now. Yes, B. Yes. B Griffin says Bedford is the longest. Bedford is the longest. Ocean was the first. They say classic New York City accents are starting to disappear. They are. I think so, David. You know, sometimes I get comments from people saying that I don't sound like a New Yorker. And then sometimes I get comments that are quite the opposite. I sound a lot like a New Yorker. And I think there is no one homogeneous New York accent. The reason we have that stereotypical New York accent from Bugs Bunny or from Super Mario is because it was the Italian immigrants and also a few other immigrant groups like the Irish and the Jewish Eastern Europeans. That's why we have that stereotypical accent. But it wasn't surely wasn't representative of all the groups here because Puerto Ricans started coming here since the 1920s or even before. You also had South Americans, you also had Syrians who settled in Lower Manhattan. You had such a wide group of people. There was no homogeneous accent. Probably last time you had a homogeneous accent was 1830s before there was any Irish immigration. Hi, Milagrosa, welcome. Remember the movie Lords of Flatbush? I've never seen it, but it does take place here. Is it any good, Ralph? Do you like it? Interesting how it's more ethnic diverse than here than in Manhattan. Yes, Manhattan isn't much ethnically diverse below 96th Street. You have to go above 96 to see the Dominican populations. There's a little area where there's a lot of Senegalese, etc. Not so much below 96th Street. If you want to see the true diversity of New York, you'll have to go to two boroughs specifically, here, Brooklyn, and Queens. Here is the Church Avenue Station. This is how you get to this area, the BQ. There's no E train, so it won't be a BQE. And a lot of the population ended up moving here first in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Eastern European Jewish people, Italian Americans, Irish Americans that were already living here for a few generations. They started moving into these apartment buildings. Some of them designed Art Deco style, which we might pass by. Milagrosa, I don't know the area, but now I know it, will know it with you. Oh, I'm so glad I can show you this neighborhood. You know, I've shown, for example, a neighborhood like Carroll Gardens, which is a neighborhood that had a very thriving Italian American population and changed significantly and has become a much quieter neighborhood. So when you hear about these, I wasn't alive in New York City before the 90s. I grew up in 90s New York. For me, my experience in Jackson Heights, Queens, it was thriving. There was always a lot of people out in the street. Kids, families, people doing business, etc. And I've heard it was even more crowded in the streets in neighborhoods like Carroll Gardens or the Lower East Side or Williamsburg, maybe in the early days, back in the 50s and 60s. However, you don't see that too much nowadays in those same neighborhoods. But here you do. Here you do see thriving urban life out and about on the street. Can you enter the rooms in the Brooklyn Bridge? No. You're closed. Bernard, have you considered touring the Hasidic area? I have, Bernard. Search Bedford Avenue Urbanist on Facebook, and that's my video of Hasidic New York. So now we're leaving the hustle and bustle, and for our last stop, you're going to see a neighborhood that is so different from what we just saw, and we're right here. This is Prospect Park South, parts of it. Neighborhoods are here getting very tricky. A lot of people just call it one umbrella term, Flatbush. Some residents here might prefer to call it Prospect Park South. There's also Ditmars Park, and there's a few others. Now this reminds you of London. Well, Rosalind, okay. Before we go further down here, walking through this area of Flatbush, the hustle and bustle, remind me a whole lot of Brixton because of its like look. It has a little bit of grit, and also even the ethnic makeup of the neighborhood is also Caribbean, like Brixton. Coming here also reminds me of London, and all the streets in this little area of New York City has English names because they wanted to replicate the majesty of London. So look at this, everyone. Real yards, real porches, real single family housing amongst the hustle and bustle of Flatbush. Just one block away, it was hectic. Amazon Prime drivers were about to crash into cars. The streets were so crowded I could barely walk through them. Hobos were screaming at me. People were doing business dealings in the middle of the street, everything. And now we are in a quiet, humble abode. Look at this. So, for this we have to go back to 1893. A man by the name of Dean Alvord, he's pictured right here with his son, went to the Columbia Exposition. If you've seen my videos before, you probably heard this being mentioned many times. It was mentioned back in my Coney Island broadcasts because the architecture and the lights and the dazzling displays of that same exposition inspired the theme parks of Coney Island. You might have heard it before in my Tesla video or any video I might have mentioned Edison, because that was the very first major exposition that featured electric lighting. Well, this exposition also featured very unique architecture, specifically the Japanese pavilion, which inspired rich Americans to build Oriental rooms. Now, this is a very outdated term, I know. That's what they called it at that time. People won't call it nowadays the same name. However, Dean Alvord decided to sell his idea of building Japanese-style houses. And the way to do it was to build a massive Japanese house here in the middle of Flatbush. He also bought 60 acres all around this area for $280,000 at that time and built all these different houses with different architecture. A lot of them were designed by one architecture firm run by John Petit. And they were all in different styles. So we have Tudor, we have Neo-Tudor, we have Classical, we have Neoclassical, we have Romanesque. Well, maybe not Romanesque. We have Queen Anne, we have Victorian, we have all these different styles. The other unique thing is there's malls. Malls, not in terms of shopping, not in terms of going to Victoria's Secret or JCPenney's, but malls in terms of little public green areas in the middle of the streets. This is really unique. But speaking of that Japanese house, prepare to be blown. Chris, you love my style. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for watching. Bernard, thank you so much for the counter. The islands of trees in the middle are beautiful. It's a little dangerous to walk outside areas of Flatbush. I feel safe, personally. I feel safe. I'll keep it at that. Granted, I am 6 feet tall, so take it as you will, but I do feel safe. Your shirts are just gorgeous. Oh, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. The history of the yards are sort of interesting and how they evolved. Oh, David, please let us know. Let us know the short version. Okay, hello. B. Griffin, you and Vic are discussing the nuances of New York accents. Yeah, there's no homogeneous accent. The reason you might hear me drop R's, for example, is because Spanish is my first language, but beyond that, my family's Puerto Rican. So Puerto Ricans are known to drop R's. Here is the Japanese house. It's covered by trees, so let's try to get a better view. But this is literally designed like a house that you would see on the countrysides of Japan. Ruben, qué barrio bien tranquilo, sí, bien tranquilo. Right here, ladies and gentlemen. Possibly the only Japanese house that you will see in New York. There's a few other examples of Japanese architecture, such as about like 2 or 3 gardens. But this is the only house, the only residential house that you'll see in the fully Japanese style. As I mentioned, some of these mansions might have what they would call at that time Oriental rooms. But this one is all out Japanese. Now, originally this was Dean Alvord's marketing plan in order to spread the style, because he fell in love with this style when he went to the Columbia exhibition in Chicago. However, the house never really sold at full price. He had to sell the house at a mere $5,000 to a doctor in 1906. The other houses sold well as well. This one, he had a little bit tougher time selling it. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm not sure who would not say no to a house like this. It's absolutely gorgeous. Maybe it was a little bit too expensive at that time. Who knows? But to think that you could buy a house for $5,000 is kind of crazy to me as well. It's temple architecture. Interesting, yes. With non-traditional color combination. Yeah, the color combination, the people who bought it, and should be protected, I think. They restored the original color that Dean Alvord put here. It was designed by John Petit. So they restored the original color combination. But yeah, you're right. It probably isn't traditional, as you say, because of the kind of this orange, this kind of reddish orange. How old is it? This was built in 1904. It officially became a house for someone in 1906. So let's take a little closer look. Hopefully not invade too much privacy. It's currently a residential home. Last time it was sold as of 2008, if I recall correctly, for $1.8 million. So in New York City standards, actually not too bad. 1.8 million. Right there. Those homes are beautiful. I agree. I agree. I wonder what the inside looks like. Christine says Puerto Ricans affect the New York City accent as much as Jewish and Italian. Yeah. There's bound to be a few words that snuck in as well. This area looks like so similar to Midtown, Kansas. All right. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Bernard. If anyone has any last remaining questions, this is our last stop. Let's just I'll show you more of the mansions in this area. But before I do, great that you mentioned that this reminds you of the suburbs in Kansas. Dean Alvord, his original intention was to build a rural lifestyle within city blocks. He called it Rus du Urbans. Hard to pronounce. It was like a weird Frenchalization of his architectural philosophy. However, he ended up designing his hand in various suburbs in Long Island, such as Laurelton in Nassau County and Belle Terre in Port Jefferson. Thus, those original suburbs that happened in Long Island in the early 1900s were most likely inspirations for the suburbs that opened up in mass in the 1950s after World War II. This is Buckingham Road, not place. And the name was actually made by the developer Dean Alvord as well. So let's look at a few of the other trees. Feel free to ask me anything. We're right by the train, so we're hearing the train pass by. Now, that would probably be the only reason I would not buy this house, personally, because the train is literally passing right behind it. But that was originally one of the selling points, is that it was right next to the new BMT line. So Buckingham Road. And there's a lot of other British names here. So here we have Albemarle Road. New Yorkers pronounce Nassau with a long A. Nassau. Yeah. I've heard that before. My friend had a Tudor home in Laurelton. Well, so cool. This is a really calm, beautiful neighborhood. Am I going to Williamsburg today? No, not necessarily. Scott says, I think LI and PA and New Jersey are test kitchens as they were for mainstream suburbia. Yes, Scott, great observation. Yes, they were. So the suburbia you most likely see all around the U.S. We're inspired by neighborhoods like this, first in Brooklyn, and these were known as suburbs. These were the first suburbs in America. Like Brooklyn Heights, dates all the way back to the 1820s. Es tan bonito eso. Oh, sí. Wow, the craftsmanship is amazing. I agree. The guy designed some great houses. And let me show you actually more of the structures he designed. He also designed Dreamland in Coney Island. So John Petit, who designed Japanese House and many of these other houses, also designed Dreamland. And Belle Terre has the pink mansion featured in Meryl Streep, the movie She-Devil. Oh, cool. Thanks for letting us know. So a lot of people sitting out and about. So literally Flatbush, where we started, Church Avenue and Flatbush Avenue, is only a mere short few blocks away. Am I heading at Coney Island Avenue? No, I'm not entirely sure if it's around here. Logan, thank you so much for the stars. I grew up in Levittown, but this was early 70s to 80s. Levittown, one of the first suburbs in Long Island as well. Can you do a tour of Brighton Beach? Maybe one day, Ralph. Maybe one day. Marguerite, thank you so much for finding a link that shows the inside of the Japanese house. Chris says this is a calm, relaxing, beautiful neighborhood. Besides the train noise, yeah, it is. And hello, Millicent from the Upper West Side. And this color scheme is very Korean palace-like. Oh, interesting. Your camera is such crystal clear, says Susu. I feel like I'm there walking with you. I'm so glad you're enjoying the new quality of live streaming. All right, let me walk a little bit more. I'll show you a little bit more here. Eleanor, you're watching from Inverness, Florida. Welcome. There's also a Levittown in Puerto Rico. Yes, Levittown, Puerto Rico is very similar to the Levittown in Long Island. And I think it might have been the same developers, though I'm not 100% sure. Now, one interesting thing is that Dean Alvord did was they grew trees on the sidewalk, which we see a few. I think some of them have been torn down, unfortunately. But there were trees on the sidewalk, plantings, so there used to be a tree here. Seems to have been taken away. But there was also trees planted in the building line. And the reason he did that was to give the illusion that there was only one house per street. Am I ever going to the West Coast? Maybe one day. It's not top priority for me, to be honest. You will see Europe before you will see any West Coast. You get used to the train. Bernard says, thank you so much for letting know. Bernard, yes, they're very, very helpful. So thank you so much for letting me know the counter. Welcome everyone watching on YouTube and Facebook. And B. Griffin, thank you so much for saying be sure to hit the like button if you like Ariel's tour. Yeah, if you like this tour, please be sure to like the like button. And yes, there's the walkway also in Manhattan. Someone mentioned it a few times already. Pomander Walk. It's a bit hard to pronounce. The one around the Upper West Side. This one looks like a mini White House. And I have a friend who lives in one of these houses. And I was so blown away when I went inside and visited for a party she had. There were so many rooms. And look at all the different windows. So the interesting thing is some of these houses have floors that are kind of like half of it is designed on one level, the other half is designed on a kind of half step. Hey Kay, you have a drip in each arm. If I move, it beeps. No, no worries, Kay. I'm glad you're being taken care of. I'm not entirely sure, but you can find the prices for these houses on Street Easy. I would assume they're already starting to reach 2 million. San Francisco is harder to do walk because of the hills. Yes, it is, Marguerite. I can imagine. We don't have many trees here in the Canary Islands, just tons of palm trees, which don't bring a lot of shade, I imagine. Or the love button on YouTube, Facebook. Yes, yes, indeed, Gwen. Thank you so much. Newkirk Plaza. Newkirk Plaza is nearby. Yes, it is the subway stop. Cheap houses for, that's cheap for houses in this area. I think so. I was kind of shocked that that Japanese house sold only for 1.8 million, which I mentioned 2008 though. So that was a little bit more than 10 years ago. I think some of them might be shared as well because there's a few houses where they have like 4 or 5 cars. And this is what I really like. Yes. Take care, Kay. Okay. Take care. Yes, indeed. You're a wonderful part of the urbanist community. Indeed, you are, Kay. Crucial part to the urbanist community. What's the name of the street I'm on? Right now I'm on Abelmore. That blue house on your left is amazing. Look at that. Look at all the huge windows. And the porches, the indoor porches are really what, blow me away. I love those indoor porches. And they have gigantic yards as well. Hello from Athens, new subscriber. Thank you so much. Look at that. Thank you so much, Jackie. Alba Mare. Or Mar. Alba Mar. Hello to all the newly arriving urbanists. Oh, we have a lot of people tuning in. Welcome. So Chris makes an interesting observation. It says interesting to see a lot of unique styles. Yes, I agree, Chris. You know, that's why I don't like too much about suburbia in other parts, in Long Island, or if you go to New Jersey, or even parts of Staten Island or northern Queens. You don't have too much unique architecture. And the cool thing about this specific neighborhood is that the developer first made a bunch of unique architecture, but beyond that, he ended up letting some clients who wanted to hire their own architects to use their own architects. So there wasn't a lot of oversight. And I do understand it's nice to have sometimes uniform architecture, but that uniform architecture better be beautiful. That's why Paris is amazing in terms of its architecture. But you go to other neighborhoods in Long Island or many suburban neighborhoods all around the US, that uniform architecture isn't really that exciting. And it could use some spicing up. So I like what they did here in Prospect Park South / Flatbush. And I'm from Port Jefferson. And Kathy, oh yeah, Port Jefferson is another area of Long Island that has amazing architecture. I did a tour there like 2 months ago. I also love indoor porches, says Olivia. How far will you have to walk to catch the subway? Oh, well, yeah, that is a good question. How far? You would think that we, surrounded by these beautiful houses, are so far away from the subway. And I would think that too. But the subway stop is literally right there. This is the Beverly Road station. Literally right here. This is the subway. I'll show it to you. Gone are the days of unique suburban architecture, death by McMansions. Yep. It is quite sad that there's not enough unique architecture in suburbia. Well, we can't see the subway too well here. Not to cross private property, but right there is the subway station. So I wanted to give a huge thanks to all the new supporters: Tom, Jen, Deanna, Calvin, Sally, Anna, Sharon, Elizar. It went away before I had a chance to finish. Zaid, Sarah, Lori, Anna, Patricia, Mallory, Stephanie, Judith, and many others. Thank you for your support on both Patreon and Facebook supporters. This marks the end of our tour. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the kind comments. I'm glad you appreciate the history. And also, if you want to see more videos, you can always press that follow button on Facebook or that subscribe button on YouTube. And if you enjoyed this, press that like or heart button as well. Let me know. All right, that was a good tour. I did a tour of Port Jefferson. Search Port Jefferson Urbanist. You'll see it there. I did a tour and all the history, so it's really cool. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Stay tuned, maybe a little bit later today, I'm gonna do another wander around Prospect Heights, most likely. So stay tuned. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring.